Okay, here's chapter 12 of Pippi in the South Seas. It's called Pippi Longstocking Doesn't Want to Grow Up. And there's a picture of her sleeping in her bed. And do you see? She puts her feet on the pillow and her head under the blankets. Very strange. So, chapter 12, Pippi Longstocking doesn't want to grow up. Oh, how Tommy and Annika's mother and father hugged and kissed them, and what a wonderful supper they had prepared for them. Afterward, they tucked them in and sat for a long, long time on the edge of their children's beds, listening to the tales of all the strange things they had experienced at Kerkert Island. They were so happy, all of them. There was only one sad thing, and that was not having any Christmas. Tommy and Annika didn't want to tell their mother how miserable they were because they had missed having a tree and presents. But that's the way it was. It seemed so strange to be back home. It always does when you've been away a long time. And it would have been much easier if they had actually got home on Christmas Eve. Now, Tommy and Annika were so sad that when they thought about Pippi. Now, of course, she would be home in bed at the Villa Kula with her feet on her pillow, and there was no one there to tuck her in. They made up their minds to go see her as soon as they could the next morning. But the following day, their mother didn't want to let them go because she hadn't seen them for such a long time. And besides, their grandmother was coming for dinner to welcome the children home. Tommy and Annika wondered anxiously what Pippi could be doing all day. And when it began to get dark, they couldn't stand it any longer. "Please, Mother, we have to go and see Pippi. She's all by herself," said Tommy. I guess, yes, run along then," said Miss Settigren. "But don't stay too long." Tommy and Annika ran off to see Pippi. When they got to the garden gate of the Villa Kula, they stopped and they stared in utter amazement. It looked just like a Christmas card. The whole house was softly blanketed in snow. And there were gleaming lights in all the windows. A torch was burning at the veranda and shedding its brightness over the snow-covered lawn. One path to the veranda was neatly shoveled, so Tommy and Annika didn't have to wade through the drifts. Just as they were stamping the snow off their feet on the veranda, the door opened, and there stood Pippi Longstocking. "Merry Christmas," she said. She ushered them into her kitchen, and there was a Christmas tree. The lights were lit, and 17 sparklers were burning, filling the whole room with a nice smoky smell. The table was set with puddings and hams and sausages and all sorts of Christmas food. Yes, even gingerbread men and birds' nests. There was a fire in the stove, and the horse was standing at the wood bin, scraping his hoof in a very refined way. Mr. Nielsen was hopping back and forth amongst the sparklers on the Christmas tree. "He's supposed to be an angel," said Pippi, "but I can't get him to sit still." Tommy and Annika just stood there speechless. "Oh, Pippi," said Annika finally, "how wonderful. When did you find the time to do all of this?" "Oh, me, I'm the hard-working type," said Pippi. and Tommy and Annika were suddenly overwhelmed with happiness. I think it's just grand to be back at the Villa Kula again, said Tommy. And they sat down around the table and they ate piles of ham and pudding and sausage and little gingerbread men, and everything tasted even better to them than bananas and breadfruit. But you know, Pippi, it isn't Christmas at all, said Tommy. Ah, yeah, sir, I know that, said Pippi. The Villa Kula almanac is a little slow this year. I have to take it to an almanac maker and have it adjusted so that will run properly again, you see. Oh, how wonderful, said Annika again. We celebrated Christmas after all, except without Christmas presents, of course. Ah, that reminds me, said Pippi. I've hidden your Christmas presents. You have to find them yourself. Tommy and Annika's faces became flushed with excitement as they sprang up and started hunting all over, looking and looking. In the wood bin, Tommy found a big package which was marked Tommy. Inside was a fine set of paints, and under the table, Annika had found a package with her name on it, and inside was a pretty red parasol. A parasol is an umbrella. And here is a picture of Pippi's Christmas. Oh, I could take this with me back to the island next time we go there, said Annika. High up on the hood of the stove were two more packages. One contained a small Jeep car for Tommy, and in the other was a set of doll dishes for Annika. A small package was also hanging on the horse's tail. In it was a clock for Tommy and Annika's room. When they had found all the Christmas presents, they gave Pippi big hugs and thanked her over and over again. She was standing at the kitchen window looking out at all the snow in the garden. Tomorrow I think we should be building a big snow hut, she said, and we'll have lights burning in it at night. That'll be fun. Oh, yes, let's, said Annika, feeling happier than ever to be back home. I'm wondering if we could make a ski slope, running down from the roof to the snowdrifts below. I'm going to teach the horse to ski. But, I can't decide whether he needs 4 skis or 2. Oh, we're going to have a wonderful time tomorrow, said Tommy. What luck that we came home in the middle of Christmas vacation. Oh, we're always going to have fun, said Annika, at the Villa Kula or on Kirkardut Island, and just everywhere. Pippi nodded in agreement, and they crawled up on the kitchen table, all 3 of them. Suddenly a dark shadow passed over Tommy's face. I never want to grow up, he said emphatically. I don't either, said Annika. No, that's nothing to wish for, being grown up, said Pippi. Grown-ups never have any fun. They only have a lot of boring work and wear silly-looking clothes, and they have corns and municipal taxes. It's called municipal, said Annika. Well, anyway, it's the same old grown-up nonsense, said Pippi. And then their full of superstitions and all sorts of crazy things. They think that something terrible is going to happen if they happen to stick their knives in their mouth while they're eating, and things like that. And they can't play either, said Annika. Oh, how awful to have to grow up. Well, who says you gotta grow up? Asked Pippi. If I'm remembering right, I have a few tricks somewhere. What kind of tricks? Said Tommy. Some very fine tricks for people who don't want to grow up. And at this, Pippi jumped down from the table, and she hunted through some closets and drawers, and after a while, she produced something that looked like peas. Peas? Said Tommy, surprised. Oh, that's what you think, said Pippi. These aren't regular peas. They are chili lug peas, and were given to me by Rio, by an old Native American chief, when I happened to mention that I wasn't wild about the idea of growing up. You mean that those peas can do it? Asked Annika skeptically. Oh, absolutely, said Pippi. But you gotta eat them in the dark. And then you have to say this. Pretty little chili lug pea. I don't want to get a bug, you see. You mean big? Said Tommy. If I say bug, I mean bug, said Pippi. That's the trick, you see. Most children say big. And that's the worst thing that can happen. Because when you start to grow more than ever, once there was a boy who ate the peas like these, and he said big instead of bug. And he ate, and he started growing, and it was a complete nightmare. He was many, many feet high. I'm sorry, I keep losing my spot. Here we go. It was terrible. He was all right as long as he could go around grazing under apple trees. You know, the way giraffes eat leaves. But then he got too big, and that didn't even work anymore. When some ladies came to visit, and they wanted to say, "My, what a nice big boy you've grown up to be," they had to shout into a megaphone so that he could hear them. All you saw of him was his long, skinny legs disappearing in amongst the clouds like two flagpoles. He was never heard of after that. Oh yeah, once he was, but that was when he took a lick at the sun and he got a blister on his tongue. Then he let out such a roar that the flowers down on earth wilted. But that was the last sign of life from that boy, although his legs are probably still wandering around down in Rio, making awful mix-ups in the traffic. Oh, I don't dare eat one of those peas, said Annika, terrified, in case I might say the wrong thing. Oh, you won't say the wrong thing, said Pippi reassuringly. If I thought you'd do that, I wouldn't give you one, because it would be boring to just have your legs to play with, Annika. Tommy and me and your legs, oh, that would be fine company. Oh, Annika, you won't make a mistake, said Tommy, and they turned the Christmas tree lights out. The kitchen was completely dark, except near the stove where the fire was glowing behind the stove door. They sat down in silence in a circle in the middle of the floor, holding one another by the hand. Pippi gave Tommy and Annika each a Chillilug pea. Chills ran up and down their spines. Just think, in a second, the powerful pea would be down in their stomachs, and then they would never have to grow up. How marvelous would that be? Now, sorry, my cat just arrived. Now, said Pippi whispered, pretty little Chillilug pea, I don't want to get bugged, you see. They said it all together, and they swallowed their peas. The deed was done. Pippi turned on the ceiling light. That's it, she said. Now we don't have to grow up. And we have corns and all those other miseries that grown-ups do. Though, you know, those peas have been lying around in my closet for so long that one can't be absolutely sure that all the strength hasn't gone out of them. But we have hope for the best. Annika suddenly thought of something. Oh, Pippi, she said in alarm. You were going to be a pirate when you grew up. I can be one anyway, said Pippi. I can still become a nasty little pirate who spreads death and destruction all around me. Ha 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 ha. She was quiet for a while, thinking. Just imagine, she said, if a lady walks by here one day, many, many years from now, and she sees us running around in the garden of the Villa Coola, perhaps she will ask Tommy, how old are you, my little friend? And then you'll say, 53, if I'm not mistaken. Tommy laughed merrily. She'll probably think that I'm small for my age, he said. Of course, said Pippi. But then you can explain that you were bigger when you were smaller. Just then, Annika and Tommy remembered that their mother had told them not to stay too long. I think we better go now, said Tommy. We'll come back tomorrow, okay, Pippi? Said Annika. Oh, that's fine, said Pippi. We'll get started on that snow hut at 8 o'clock. She walked with them to the gate, and her red pigtails danced around her as she ran back to the Villa Coola. You know, said Tommy a while later when he was brushing his teeth, if I hadn't known that those were Chillilug peas, I would have been willing to bet that they were just ordinary peas. Annika was standing at the window of her room in her pink pajamas, looking over towards the Villa Coola. Look, I see Pippi, she called out in delight. Tommy rushed over to the window too. Yes, there she was. Now that the trees didn't have any leaves, they could look right into Pippi's kitchen. Pippi was sitting at the table with her head propped against her arms. She was staring at the little flickering flame of a candle that was standing in front of her. She seemed to be dreaming. She just looks so alone, said Annika, and her voice trembled a little bit. Oh, Tommy, if it were only morning, so that we could go to her right away. They stood there in silence and looked out into the winter night. The stars were shining over the Villa Coola's roof, and Pippi was inside. She would always be there. That was a comforting thought. The years would go by, but Pippi and Tommy and Annika would not grow up. That is, of course, if the strength hadn't gone out of the Chillilug peas. There would be new springs and summers, new autumns and winters, but their games would go on. Tomorrow they would build a snow hut and make a ski slope from the roof of the Villa Kula. And when spring came, they would climb the hollow oak where the soda pops sprouted up. They would hunt for treasure, and they would ride on Pippi's horse. They would sit in the woodbin and tell stories. Perhaps they would also take a trip back to the island now and then to see their friends Momo and Moana and all the others. But they would always come back to the Villa Kula. And the most wonderful, comforting thought was that Pippi would always be in the Villa Kula. If she would only look in this direction, we could wave at her, said Tommy. But Pippi continued to stare straight ahead with a dreamy look, and then she blew out the candle. That is the end of Pippi in the South Seas. I wonder if you liked that book. I hope you did. It was one of my favorite, because Pippi's not a real person and real people don't do things that she can do. It's kind of fun to think about how cartoons or fictional characters live, isn't it? They can do anything because it's made out of words. All right. I hope this helped you over our long MEA weekend, and I'll see you back in class. Bye-bye.